Instagram says it will bring in new film-style age ratings to stop children from accessing inappropriate content.
But speaking to Good Morning Britain, the social media giant's global director of public policy has warned parents they still can't guarantee what children see will be completely appropriate.
We will probably never get to zero. And I just want to say that to parents, that just as in a PG-13 movie, you might see some swearing, you might see some content that you don't think is appropriate for your teen. That will probably still happen on Instagram, but we're really trying to work hard to make that as rare as possible and to give parents reassurance. When your teen is on Instagram, they're in that guided by PG-13 experience.
We're joined now by Ellen Room. In 2022, her 14-year-old son, Jules, died. She believes he was attempting a social media challenge on TikTok. Since then, Ellen has been campaigning for more to be done to protect young people online.
And in San Francisco is Meta whistleblower Arturo Bejar, who says kids aren't safe on Instagram. Well, good morning to you both. Arturo, let's just ask you first, because you used to work for Meta, for Instagram. Why do you think that this new film-style PG-13 setting won't be effective?
The last 4 or 5 times they've announced such things, they've made the same claims, that you won't be able to find this content, that you won't see it. And when we tested these things recently, we found you can not only find it, but they recommend it to you. So if you start typing a search query, you can end up in self-harm content. And so, you know, we need independent testing to make sure that these things actually work, because we can't rely on what they say.
So is the concern, therefore, not that this new system makes things worse, but it might give parents a false sense of security?
Exactly. I think that what Meta has been doing with teen accounts and in recent years is gives parents a false and dangerous sense of security by making these really broad claims about the things that they're protecting against while they're not doing the work, which they could do. You could have a social media product that could be so much safer for teens, but that relies on them doing the work and on independent oversight and testing, which is so essential in this field.
Just give us the top couple of measures that you think Instagram have the power to introduce that they haven't yet introduced that you would recommend.
So the first one is actually sensitive content controls that ensure that you cannot search for or get recommended certain kinds of self-harm content, like blackout challenges. Like, I've spoken to parents whose kids have died from that, and every Friday they go searching for them, and every Friday they find them. And so what's in place doesn't work right now. And then the other thing that they should really... Sorry, go ahead.
What I'd like to understand is, in your view, is this negligence by the social media firms, or Instagram in this particular case, that it just isn't doing it well enough? Or is this a deliberate function as it doesn't want to reduce the impact of its algorithm, which is what makes it so usable and addictive, and they're not willing to sacrifice that for protection? Where does this fit on that spectrum in your experience, having worked there?
I think it's a deliberate function because there's a willful blindness. Whereas today, for example, it's really hard to report harmful content like the kind we're talking about today. It's almost impossible. And if you can't report it, how can they remove it? How can they deal with it? And so they like saying that they do these things, but the product doesn't work that way. And the product is the ground truth of what we're talking about.
Ellen, your son Jules died back in April 2022, so 3.5 years ago. And you are still struggling, aren't you, to find out what he had looked at before he died?
Very much so. As a parent, you have no legal right to see what your children look at, which I think is ridiculous. He was 14 years old. I want to know what he was seeing or what he was fed. You know, we're just hearing, as we all know, that algorithms feed our children this material. And so what was he fed that made him do something strange? Or who was messaging? Was it blackmail? Was it some sort of sextortion that's become so popular these days, particularly with young boys? Yes. I just don't know.
And the particular platform was TikTok that you were dealing with. Is that do you think there's a commonality that that's across all social platforms, or was this specific to TikTok?
Very much so. And hearing what the person just said then, I know of a huge amount of bereaved parents that spend their time looking for harmful things. I reported something to TikTok last week. It was I mentioned this yesterday to somebody, and they said, you actually ought to say what it is. So it was so violent. It was a schoolgirl being punched in the head, and it was so graphically violent that it actually made me feel sick while reading it, watching it, trying to find the report button. And it came back with no violation. And I thought, how can you have something like that says no violation? And I stupidly didn't screen record it because I've now not got a record of what I've seen, so I started, but I didn't actually want it on my phone. It was so repulsive, and I thought, how can they not be removing that? So is that a computer that's saying that that's not violent, it's not violent content? We know children are being fed this. Why have we got platforms that allow children to see harmful content? It is awful.
What do you make of Instagram, specifically Instagram's new measure that those who sign up who are 13, because you aren't allowed to sign up before you're 13, up until 18, will be fed content that is pretty similar to a sort of film rating. Do you think that, you know, if that was in place, that might have protected Jules?
I think you've got two problems there. You just hit the first nail on the head by saying, well, you're not allowed to until you're 13. So, of course, we know that younger children are signing up and putting in whatever age in. And so they do say that they've got some software that's trying to work out what ages there are, but we need to regulate what ages the children are on the platform to work out whether the teen accounts are going to work. And then you've got the added problem about the parents have a nice, safe teen account, although they think it's all got the controls and safe, and the child goes and opens another 10 different accounts with different details and different dates of birth. How do we control that?
Is 13 too young?
Yes, I do think it's too young.
What age would you say if you were in... Because I mentioned earlier, from memory, I'm only 90% on this, the age was actually about the age that you could sign a contract to set it up rather than the age that social media was suitable. So there isn't any proper data on 13 is a suitable age. What age would you set it at?
I think everybody's pushing for 16.
Yes.
I still worry at 16 that you've got children then, potentially at 16, seeing graphic, violent, harmful content at 16 or pornographic. Are we saying that's OK at 16? I personally think if they can't make it safe, then we may need to make it 18. But ultimately, it needs to be regulating what's on those platforms so the platforms take accountability for what is on their platform and it stops this addictive by design.
Let's just ask Arturo for a second. You heard Ellen there. So her first question was, when she reported the other day this inappropriate punching video, who made the decision that that was appropriate? Would it have been on TikTok, this was? I know your Instagram is your specialty, but in general terms on social media, would that be likely to be a human being, or will that have been an AI-based decision?
It was Instagram. Sorry.
It was Instagram. Sorry, it was Instagram, so you absolutely know on there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a machine that's making that decision. And again, we can't rely on parents to be searching for this kind of content. You need independent oversight and testing so that we know, because what we just heard from Ellen, I've heard from so many other parents, which is, my children has died and I can't get access to information, which absolutely should be a right that's legislated. And the things that get built hide, for example, if a kid has another account or other areas. So there's so many issues that parents like Ellen bring to mind, that whistleblowers like myself bring to attention. And the company just comes back and says these truisms that are kind of meaningless. And we really need regulators to step up in order to make a difference.
And may I ask you, if you were going to set the minimum age for people to use social media, what age would you set it at?
16 in the least. The way things are right now, they're just not safe enough to hand to a child or a teenager.
Certainly, and I don't know from yours, but I know from the scam situation, I've reported scams of me, and I've been said back, no, that's not a violation, it isn't a scam. And I'm going, well, I know it's a scam because it's a scam of me. So this is a systemic, not just across child protection, but right across the entire way that social media works, that their bad actors' decision-making tends to be done by AI-based interface rather than by human being, and it isn't good enough.
And it's difficult once you've got that far and you've got no violation. Well, where do you go? You can't... And I'm on a panel with bereaved parents with Ofcom, and we've said, how do we report this? You know, you can't... There isn't a way of reporting that other than them come back and say, no violation, you're stuck.
How far have you got, Ellen, finding out what Jules was looking at from all the social media that he was on?
So I have employed a wonderful guy called Mick Randall from Fedora Investigations, who has produced a report which is currently sitting in my inbox, which I didn't want to read before I came on air.
We understand that.
But, yes, they've uncovered some other things that we hadn't heard of, which I'm about to go back and read and see where we go forward. But I'm not stopping this. Things were missed. I know things were missed, and I hopefully have got the proof sitting in my inbox of where to go next, and I'm not stopping.
We wish you all strength and fortitude for what is obviously going to be a very difficult task to go forward, and much love to you.
Thank you.
I mean, you're asking for automatic data preservation so that a child's online data immediately upon notification of their death is preserved without requiring specific account details from parents. I find it absolutely shocking that in the depths of your grief and shock about what happened to your son, you then have to go into battle.
I'm not the only parent. I know that I get contacted all the time. In fact, there was one of the police forces that advised her, a bereaved mother last week, to contact me because I would know more than the police. And I thought, wow, you know, they don't understand the law or how they can use it. And I'm in contact with so many other bereaved parents, all desperately wanting answers. This is not just me, it's all of us. This is changing it for everybody.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
We'll stay in touch.
I need to read this. Meta says teens with protection see less sensitive content and parents have robust tools at their fingertips. We'll continue improving our tools.
If you're affected by that issue, you can find advice and support at itv.com/helplines. Thank you both. Thank you, Arturo, as well.
Thank you both.